And if you try to plug in negative 3 in your function y is equal to 5x minus 3 over 2x plus 1, maybe we can do that. So we have 5 times negative 3 minus 3 over 2 times negative 3 plus 1. You're going to see that if you plug in negative 3, which is before negative 1 half, because you want to observe what happens to your function as you go from the left side of negative 1 half, right? What happens to your function here? So you can do a test run. So if you plug in negative 3 here, or any number, it could be negative 5, right? As long as it's before negative 1 half, you're going to see that your y value, if your x is negative 3, your y value is a positive number, which is 3.6. So that means if it's before negative 1 half or the left of negative 1 half, your function needs to be positive. That's why you're drawing this up here. Does that make sense? So that tells you that you're having your function here as opposed to here, right? Does that make sense? And the same thing applies here. So say, for example, you're unsure even though you have your x and y intercepts drawn. If you try to find a number, for example, you can pick, let's see, since we use 3 over 5, which is zero point 0.6, you can pick 1, right? If you pick 1, so maybe we can plug that in right now. If you have 5 times 1 minus 3, right? So plug in 1 to your function y, and then you have 2 times 1 plus 1. You're going to see that your function, right? If you plug in 1 here, you're going to get 0.67, and that's why it's right here, right? That's why if you have x is equal to 1, it should be around 0.67. Does that make sense? And then how do you know it's going down, right? How do you know it's like below your x-axis over here? So you're going to have to find a number that is in between negative 1 half and 0, right? That's why you can actually see that it's sloping down. Okay, so moving on to this function. So interestingly, we have an exponential function. And how do I know it's an exponential function? Anytime you see y is equal to a, right? A being your base, raised to the power of x, and then sometimes you have plus c. So in this case, we have negative 1, which is our c. That is an exponential function. So whenever you have an exponential function, you need to also have your horizontal asymptote written down, right? So your c, right, in this case, because sometimes you can just have y is equal to 3x, for example, and then when you draw this graph, you don't really have any c, right? Your c is 0. It's not none, it's 0. So that means if you have just 3 raised to the power of x, your horizontal asymptote is just simply going to be y is equal to 0, right? But here's the thing, you have negative 1. Your c value is negative 1, therefore your horizontal asymptote is going to be negative 1. Okay, so do you have an x